It's obvious that all the rules and regulations of scuba diving are in our PADI books. However, just like in language classes, you don't always learn the slang or the do's and don'ts. We are here to tell you about the quote-unquote faux pas of scuba diving. First, do not spread your gear all over the boat. There are designated areas for things like your fins and your mask. This is not only for the safety of your equipment, but for others around. It is also just very annoying. Think of it as you're staying at somebody else's house and you should respect the area. 2. We have a lot of things on our body that we aren't used to, such as our fins. So we'll be walking around like ducks all over the boat until we get into the water. There's going to be about 2 to 3 45-minute increments during the day where you will be walking around and swimming with these fins on. Be careful. It is very important to realize how important it is to keep control under the water with your fins. When first learning to scuba dive and figuring out your ideal weight and buoyancy controls, it's easy to get in the habit of swimming your way through diving. However, when a diver kicks their fins too rapidly or too drastically, it can pick up sand that is below them and ruin the visibility for everyone around them. 3. Don't touch the animals or the coral. Humans have natural oils on their skin that can easily injure or kill a marine animal just by a simple touch. Coral is fragile too. As you are diving, you will most likely see some worn off coral that's either fallen off of its main structure or is very close to doing so. Leave it alone. Remember, we are visitors, and another thing to make sure you do is leave the animals be and do not overact when one is near you. Particularly with sharks, never ever swim away from one or panic. Keep calm and breathe normally to avoid any lung issues. Panicking and frantically swimming away will draw attention to you from the shark and can result in a very uncomfortable situation for you. Think about it. Food for sharks would swim away to avoid being eaten, so don't act like they're food and you'll be okay. Now, if you want to appear knowledgeable and like you've done your PADI studying, remember that fins are not flippers, and masks are not a pair of goggles. Enough about etiquette, how about some fun fish signals that you can send to your buddy to indicate that you found something cool? So to begin, we're going to start with the moray eel. With the moray eel, you'll often find them kind of lurking within little caves and sometimes swimming through trenches. Something that you can do to show your friend that there's an eel nearby is to pinch your middle finger, your pointer finger, and your thumb together and make almost like a chomping motion. Then you've got the pufferfish, which you can show with your hands. Just clasp your hands together and then slowly bring them out, or you can simply puff up your cheeks. So that one's kind of fun. Oftentimes you won't find them puffed up, so you'll find them in their natural state, and when they're frightened or feel defensive, that's when they go into their pufferfish mode. Then we've got the parrotfish. So the parrotfish is actually a very common fish within lots of coral reefs. It's very colorful, almost like a rainbow. And something you can do is sort of put a beak in front of your mouth as if it were a parrot. So that one you will be using a lot if you are into using these hand signals. The next one is a sea turtle. So you can just do something kind of like the awkward turtle hand signal, and everyone pretty much knows what that is. Then we've got the crab. This works for the lobster too, but you basically just take both hands and act like you have little pincers. Then we've got the octopus. The octopus, you actually put one hand under the other and wiggle your fingers below it, acting as if it's the 8 legs of the octopus. I guess tentacles. Oops. And then we've got the jellyfish, which you basically you pinch your fingers together and pull along in a straight line, just as you would picture a jellyfish moving. Then you've got garden eels. So garden eels are very, very common in almost every dive site that we will be going to. With garden eels, you will often find stingrays because that's what they feed off of. If you go anywhere near a garden eel, you'll notice that they all sink down into the hole so you can never get too close without them getting frightened. Now we're going to talk about the lionfish. So the lionfish is actually a very invasive species. It's really bad for the coral and other neighboring species around it. It is very distinctive. You'll know exactly what it is when you see it. And the way to indicate that there's a lionfish is just to intertwine all your fingers and kind of wiggle them. And everyone will know what you're talking about. They often are sort of hidden around the coral, always hanging out around there, so you will most likely find one. Then my personal favorite, the simple but adorable triangle fish, is actually shaped like a triangle, and that is simply the hand signal that you do is you make a triangle with your fingers, and those are pretty easily spotted because they're just so distinctive. Next, we've got the manta ray. So the manta rays are a little bit less likely to be seen compared to an ordinary blue-spotted stingray or just a regular stingray. But if we were to see a manta ray, then you would just extend your arms out and wave them as if you are a bird because they move in that graceful fashion.
Now let's see if you guys learned anything. We are going to quiz you in a second. If you are not in this classroom, I guess you're going to not be able to identify fish with your hands. Happy sailing.